Welcome to America's Forum. New York Times bestselling author of numerous books focusing on Islamic terrorism and jihad. Specifically for this discussion, the book Arab Winter Comes to America, the truth about the war in America. Robert Spencer joins us. Mr. Spencer, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me on.
Outside of, first of all, I can imagine the hilarity that was heard in the Pentagon and the peals of laughter when this statement was made. Does this not, in a very serious sense, lead us to think that we have a military official here who says one thing, the mainline government is trying to take a quieter tone? It makes one think who's really got their finger on the button in many cases, does it not?
Yes, and the person who does have his finger on the button in Iran is the supreme leader, Khamenei, who is part of the bellicose camp. And he's actually said that the more moderate line that Rouhani has taken is a tactic, merely a tactic, to get Iran some of the things that it wants. And of course, we saw how magnificently it worked as they completely outsmarted John Kerry at Geneva to get the end of the sanctions and the essentially the green light from the United States for their nuclear program.
Does this leave us now with any consideration that perhaps there are, and this is likely according to some people I've spoken with, that you have military leaders in Iran who quite frankly would be willing to take action on their own without any discussion whatsoever from the hierarchy should indeed a war situation or a confrontation come to bear?
Yes, I think that's very likely, but we also have to bear in mind that there's no real genuine indication that the hierarchy would oppose such a thing. With Khamenei being just as bellicose as Ali Fadavi, or practically so, and making genocidal statements about the imminent demise of the Zionist regime and so on, it's clear that Iran wants war with the United States and Israel and that it is working toward it.
Robert, right now it's the bellicosity of the Iranian Navy. A while back it was an Iranian general saying that Iran had assets in place in the United States if any action was taken. Now again, this brings us back to border security being national security. As bellicose as this threat is, and with the balsa wood mock-up, I should say, third time's a charm on that, Robert. The balsa wood mock-up of the Nimitz is one thing. But an open border and weekly flights from Tehran to Caracas, I don't know if those flights are continuing with the change in leadership in Venezuela, but the Iranians want to establish a footprint in the United States and have a real presence. Do you believe there are Iranian cells within the continental United States?
I have no doubt about that whatsoever. I think you're absolutely right. We have to bear in mind that even aside from what may be happening with Venezuela, that Hezbollah has an established presence among the drug cartels in Mexico, and Hezbollah is a client of Iran. And then not only have they been training the drug dealers in Mexico so that we see them adopting jihadi tactics like beheadings and so on, but even gang members from Los Angeles have gone over to Syria to fight alongside Hezbollah. And so the collaboration there is very close. They're working with elements within the United States already, and it's only a matter of time if things turn in a direction that they don't like, that they will strike here.
This is something that requires amplification, Ed, especially when we see the disconnect in Washington. Some of our prominent leaders saying illegal immigration is, quote, an act of love. What Mr. Spencer is outlining here is the fact that an open border and a lax policy allows others to engage in an act of war against the United States.
No doubt about that whatsoever. The category other than Mexicans that the immigration and the border services maintain is increasingly dominated by Muslims from war-torn areas, particularly Iraq and Afghanistan, as well as areas where there's a high degree of anti-American sentiment such as Pakistan. That does not bode well for the future, and it doesn't seem as if, given the politically correct dominance in Washington, it doesn't seem as if anybody is paying attention sufficiently to the implications of it.
Got a little less than a minute left here. Your book, The Arab Winter Comes to America. What was the inspiration for all this and a lot of what went into writing the book?
Well, I wrote the book because I keep seeing increasingly this denial and willful ignorance at the highest levels, and that's what the book is about. That we face a genuine jihad threat. It's lethal. It struck in Boston and Fort Hood. It could have and should have been prevented at both places, but political correctness mandated by the Obama administration kept agents from being able to interpret intelligence they had correctly and to act upon it properly, and people are dead as a result.
15 seconds. Is there any doubt in your mind whatsoever that the United States government then is far behind in identifying these cells, going after these people, and knowing where they are right now to at least have a handle on what's going on in our country?
Way far behind. The problem is the Obama administration has ruled out studying the motives and goals of these people. There's no way they can evaluate the intelligence properly.
And that is your scary notion for the moment. Robert, thank you so much for joining us. I'm sure we'll talk again.
Thank you.
That is frightening when you think about that according to many people, not just Robert Spencer, we don't even know where these people are.
This is what is so concerning. The theatrics with the Navy and the Persian Gulf is one thing, but within the boundaries of our own country, we have to be very leery about that. Ed Berliner, as always, we appreciate your contribution to this program. And it's your turn to make a contribution to our program. When you come back, do you have thoughts on the situation with Iran? The possibility of Iranian cells within the United States? Tweet us your comments at Newsmax TV, hashtag America's Forum. You can also email us, connect@newsmaxtv.com. And there's Facebook, facebook.com/Newsmax. We're coming right back.